Hey guys, welcome to Canadian Cutting Edge. Today we've got a knife by QSP Knives. This is the Canary. Mine happens to be a prototype. It's a sample that QSP Knives gave to me when I was at Blade Show back in June, and I'm going to show it to you. I had a second one. I brought a second one home with me. David, the great guy at QSP at the booth, I thought he gave me both of them. The other one's got Damascus and, solid carbon fiber handle scales. But we're going to be looking at this today. The knife starts just under $50, $49.50. That's at White Mountain Knives. You can save 10% with coupon code CCE, and 10% off of that is $44.55 American. That's a pretty good buy. I haven't seen any Canadian stores listing this, but I'm sure some Canadian stores will have this when the time comes. But since it's a fixed blade, if you're in Canada, fixed blades like this have no problem crossing the border. So feel free to do that if you want to. That's all the preamble gone over. Let's get this camera set up for a table down view, and we're going to take a good look at this knife. Alrighty, let's start off with a size comparison as we usually do. Here's the Ontario Rat one, and here's that little guy. It is definitely just a little guy. It's not supposed to be a huge knife, but it feels pretty good in hand. Before we get too far ahead on that though, let's talk about the sheath. Now my sheath is different than what you're going to get. It's different because it's just plain Kydex. The sheath that you're going to get when you buy yours, it's going to have this carbon fiber look to it. It's not real carbon fiber. It's a Kydex that looks like it's carbon fiber. There's holes in it where it's riveted together through these holes. We've got this chain, two-segment system where it's got a long one, then a short, and then a ball, and then a long one. The good thing about this sheath is the retention. Very solid click. And let's hold this chain so it's not making the noise. It's not loose in there at all. It's a solid click in there. Very easy. Since there's a bit of a belly right here, you can grab it and just push off with your thumb, and it's off. So it holds quite well. And right off the top, I'm going to give you my first thoughts about this thing. I would have loved it if they would have shipped it, or maybe in a future version they will ship it, with a pocket clip kind of system. So you could use it as a neck knife, or this thing's small enough that if they put some kind of clip on here that will hold on to your pocket, and then you can just pop the knife out, you could do a pocket carry as well, because this is not huge. It's, roughly the same size as a Rat 1. It's just a little bit longer. So I think that would be really cool. Now I've got a real steel clip, fixed blade clip, that might work really well on here. Or maybe an Ulti clip. That'd probably be better. An Ulti clip, because it would lock onto your pocket. That'd be kind of cool. And those of you who don't know about Ulti clips, maybe I should review more of them. I've had one of them for quite a while. They've got small ones, slim ones, little ones. There's one I'm sure that could work with this really, really well. But the knife, what do we got? We've got the coolest thing I've ever seen on the spine of a budget knife. So look at this. That is so cool. 3D milled. It's not just some lines milled in there for jimping. It certainly feels as good as jimping in terms of giving you extra traction. But you can see it's like a, I don't know what I call it, barber pole milling. So it comes around the cross, on an angle, but a 45-degree angle. It is higher right down the middle than it is on the sides. And, it's just very cool. Hopefully I can get some really good close-up video of that. We'll see. But then we've got a drop point, a bit of a swedge on it. And then the tip, we've got a belly, comes into a straight section. We've got a sharpener's choil. I wish it was a little bit bigger. Because I think when I'm sharpening it, I'm going to mess up into the plunge right there. You can see at the factory, they got into the plunge just the tiniest little bit right there when they were sharpening it. So certainly it's going to happen to me as well. Got like a flat saber grind and this really dark black stonewash. And then you've got this black and yellow handle scales really in your face. So Yeah, it looks a little bit dangerous with the black and yellow. Those are colors signifying danger, of course. 4 holes right down the middle, all the same size. And then we've got 2 screws right there to hold it together. Are those guys T8s? Let's take a look. Yes, sir, they're T8s. I'll try to take it apart on camera in just a little while. I've not taken it apart yet, so we're going to find out together if those handle scales are glued on underneath there or not. You know, sometimes they're on knives, even if they have screws, so we'll find out. How well does this thing cut? What's the performance of it? It's actually pretty good. It's fairly thin behind the edge, but they didn't sharpen it terribly well. So I'm going to find out, partway through this video before the next segment. I'm going to pause the video, of course, stop it, and I'm going to sharpen this at some kind of angle that I'm going to still choose. And I'll tell you if it cuts better with a, sharpened differently. The shape of this thing, well, it doesn't have, it's a drop point blade. There's nothing special about the shape. Fairly straight back, a little bit of a belly there. It's got a cove milled on both sides. It's not a straight chamfer. It feels like a cove. It might be straight. Put something against that thing and see if it's straight or not. Well, I was wrong. I think that is flat. It just sort of feels like it's a cove. Maybe it's because of the visual thing with the black and the yellow. But yeah, so it's got chamfering on both sides there. Full 3-finger grip. So that works just great. So it's easy to get your hand in there. I think it's a good shape for EDC, for, a backup kind of knife, or for the tiny jobs that come up every once in a while. Certainly this is not a weapon. This is not self-defense or anything like that. It blurs the line sort of between tool and toy. And I'm saying toy in the very best way I can. I'm not saying toy as in kid's toy, but I think it's blurring that line, and it's not quite sure which one of those two it is. Is it strong enough to be a tool? Oh, 100%. We've got a full tang going all the way back. We've got good quality steel, 14C28N, or you can get some good Damascus. Good G10, decent Kydex sheath. It's definitely the quality of a tool, but it's very playful, and the different versions that you can get are very playful as well. And it's no judgment. Toys are awesome. I've got some toys that I really, really like. So I'm not saying a negative when I'm saying, it's sort of between those two. I think some of the commenters, some of you guys are going to say that this thing looks like a great tool. Some of you guys and gals are going to say that this thing, really is just a toy. So we'll see. Take one good look at how they sharpened it. Very, very thin line there. I think they sharpened it at too steep of an angle, and that's why it's not cutting well. So we'll see. I'll be right back with my own sharpening on there, and I'll try to take it apart. I've sharpened it, and yeah, that's at 18 degrees, so you can see it's a wider edge bevel than it was before. And I'll talk about the angles a little bit later, but now I sharpened it, and it's very sharp and it cuts very well. I'm very happy with this thing. And the construction of it, the G10 slabs come off easily. We've got D-shaped pins here, and we've got D-shaped holes in the handle scales, so that's great. Now, this is a prototype, and so, these screws, they had to shorten them for some reason, so there's not much thread on them. I'm sure that the factory versions, the final versions, they're going to use, pins that have a deeper hole for more thread. I think these were custom made. They don't look like they're mass produced. They look like, they were tapped and drilled out. Drilled out and tapped. Sort of custom, so that they would come up with the exact ones that they want. I'm confident that the factory shipped ones were going to have more threads than this. But they hold. It holds just fine. Never came loose on me. Very simply made. Time now to do the specs, measurements, things like that. The weight first. The weight of this is 60 grams, 2.12 ounces. The sheath with the chain. Now, yours is going to be slightly different because it's got slightly different materials. But this is 22 grams, 0.78 of an ounce. Together, 82 grams, 2.89 ounces. The sharpness from the factory, 265 bests. Thankfully now, it's like 35 bests, and it cuts like a dream come true. The measurements of the lengths: the cutting edge length, 60 millimeters, 2.36 inches. Blade length tip to the handle, 63 millimeters, 2.48 inches. So it's a good 2.5 inch blade. That's not anything to scoff at. That's pretty good. After all, I keep telling this to people, and a lot of people get it, but some people don't. We tend to use either the first 1.5 inches from the heel of the blade, or we use the 1.5 inches from the tip of the blade. So really, if you've got an 1.5 inch blade, you can do most things with the knife. Not all, of course, not all, but most. And we've got about a little under 2.5 inches here. The thickness of the blade, 2.91 millimeters. That's 0.1145 of an inch. The blade depth, its biggest right about here, pretty much close to the halfway point, 19.6 millimeters, 0.772 of an inch. How thick is it behind the grind? Well, from the factory, it was 0.47 millimeters, 18.5 thousandths of an inch. I wouldn't mind if it was even thinner, but this is thinner than most knives, so that's pretty good. The grind angles. This side's got an average score of 23.5 degrees. This side's got an average score of 23.3 degrees. So yes, it's a little bit, bullnosey, if you will. A little bit not shallow enough of an angle to come in. The handle now. The handle length, 71.3 millimeters, 2.8 inches. The handle thickness is next. That is 9 millimeters, 0.354 of an inch. It's pretty thin. The handle depth, it's widest, not here, it's actually widest right here within the grip area, 21.4 millimeters, 0.842 of an inch. The grip area, it's about 6 centimeters, about 2 1/3 inches. Enough for a 3-finger grip, even for a guy that's got extra large hands. They're just barely extra large, but they're extra large. And the total length of this knife is 134 millimeters, 5.28 inches. Finally, my thoughts on this thing. First off, I think the price for what you get is pretty good, at least for the most budget version. After the discount at White Mountain Knives, $44.55 American. Yeah, that's pretty good for this thing. And then you've got all those different variants. You can get that carbon fiber with copper, lines through it and stuff. Really fancy different handles. You can certainly get this if you are on a budget. I like that they offer it so many different ways. And as I mentioned in the video, this thing is, it rides that fence right between tool and toy. And depending on the individual who gets this, it could land on either side. So you decide what you think of this knife in terms of those ideas. I like the 3D milling on this spine. That's a special touch. Now that they've got that technology figured out, I expect we're going to see it on more of their knives. And I expect other knife companies are going to start doing special things, with their jimping as well. So that's a good thing. I like it quite a lot. The grip is reasonable for a knife this size. The blade's quite thin. It's actually a functional knife. It can be used as a tool if you want it to. The sheath is well made. You've got, good retention, and it's easy enough, to disengage it, to take it off the sheath. So that's a good thing. And as I said before, I wish they'd added the option of something like an ulti-clip, something that works like that, so that you could use this as a pocket knife, because it certainly is small enough. Also it could be used as a boot knife, a little boot knife. There's a lot of different ways that you could use this knife, not just as a neck knife. And my main con about this thing, the sharpener's choil, I wish was a little bit bigger, because sharpening it, I was very careful, and I think I did a pretty good job, but I did grind into the plunge a little bit, and that's just invariable. If they would have made it just a tiny bit bigger, and I don't know, maybe they did on the production run, yeah, that would be a little bit more helpful. But I like this knife. It's a good little knife. It's staying in my keeper list. I sell most of the knives that I review. This guy is a keeper for me. I'm that happy with it. So I think you might be too if you get one. Thank you to my supporters. You guys are awesome. And remember, friends, always cut towards your chum, not your thumb.